we're back here on the Marketer of the Day podcast. Matthew Butler from geotargetly.com is here, and we're going to talk about this amazing tool that you can use to maximize website conversions by geo-targeting your audience. We're talking about easily deploying location-based website redirects, links, content, pop-ups, and more. This is one of these ideas where sometimes you want to show different content or have your website behave differently depending on where in the world your visitors are coming from. And when this idea comes to you think, oh my gosh, like what's all the coding I have to do, right? What kind of changes do I have to make to my system? But the good news is that Matt and the team at Geo Targetly, they've developed this amazing tool that you're going to want to hear all about. So that way you can get people to engage with something that feels local to them. And you can navigate all these different rules with privacy, gambling, streaming, e-commerce. So geotargetly.com is here to save the day, especially Mr. Matt to tell us all about it. So Mr. Matt, glad to be speaking with you.
Happy to be here. Thank you for that introduction. So yeah, my name is Matt, and I'm the CMO over at Geo Targetly. I'm a little bit of a marketing nerd. I've always been obsessed with this idea of reaching users with the right message at the right time, so that the discovery of your business and services feels like is like an organic journey, which has led me here now as CMO of Geo Targetly. So what we do at Geo Targetly is we provide those tools to help companies really streamline that process to get the right visitors in the right place at the right time. And as you've mentioned, yeah, it's a no-code tool. So you just set up some rules, and then you get the code that you're just going to copy paste. We also have some low-code options if you want to do some JavaScript customization, depending on like whatever you want to do with it. We have a wide range of tools, and we're always expanding those. So I'm psyched today to take us through the power of geo-targeting. Yeah.
I am as well, because there's kind of different layers to it, isn't there? There's like the kind of the superficial, like I imagine like plugging in the country name or the city name like on a headline or something. But there's also like the ability to like serve up like the local, e-commerce SKUs or local news like from that region. Is that correct?
Yeah, so I think that's where everybody starts out. You know, they want a headline on their website that says like "Hello from Berlin" or Buenos Aires, right? Like they want to be speaking in the same language as the user, not just the same language, referencing the same places that the user is in to make things feel local. But now we're moving beyond that now with the amount of customization that we can do, and sort of also people have had more time to think about like how do we localize our websites or services to the people visiting. So this just helps people feel seen and they're in the right place. Yeah, so just going from this like big global website to like just like business that's on the corner, makes it feel like super local.
Yeah, and we're starting to get like sort of like taking that for granted in a good way, right? Like when you pull up YouTube, Netflix, Amazon, you expect it to be customized for you. And then every now and then you hear all these kind of just funny news stories. Like I think somebody went to some like airline booking page and they went through a VPN and it kept changing the country to like a more third world country. And the cost of booking the flights was way lower than like booking it from the Western world. So it's like, it's so invisible, right? It's used in so many places and we are not even really thinking about it. We just know that using going through Amazon, say, is a lot more smooth for us because we're like, hey, I know exactly what I want. And so you mentioned that, we mentioned like in the intro here that different parts of the world have all these different kind of scary legal guidelines, right? There's GDPR, there's CCPA, there's like European Union stuff. And so I know that when GDPR first came out, like the first couple of weeks, I didn't take it seriously. I was like, oh, this is the latest thing everyone's talking about. But then it was like, no, this is like you really need to have this on your site. And if you don't, there's going to be some real problems. And then it's such a headache because like, do I have to pile on 6 different kind of notices? Well, no, he has to customize it for each one. And it seems like a real tough problem to solve. What you've done with Geo Targetly seems like you've simplified things. So can you tell us about like some of these kind of compliance issues like GDPR, et cetera, and how Geo Targetly helps with that?
Yeah. So yeah. So as you mentioned, like the online environment geopolitically, globally, is becoming a little bit more complex. I think before 2018, just before GDPR came out, we had this great utopian open market across the whole world. You could visit any website, and based on just a few little like customs and exporting issues, like you could interact with any website and make purchases quite easily. And for the user, it was always an easy experience. Now, for the operators of those businesses, things have become more complex. So as you mentioned, like not a lot of people understood what GDPR was when it first came out. If you were not in Europe, you were not hearing about it a lot. But um, some of our customers use GDPR, use Geo Targetly. We have a few features, and one of them is geo blocking, right? So first of all, if you don't want to deal with users from, for example, that are protected under some of these things like GDPR, you can just block them from your website. If you do want to serve these users, and maybe like maybe you're a company that operates in the United States but also operates in Europe, but you manage your business as two separate businesses so that like data can stay in Europe and data can stay in the United States. You can use like redirection so that if a user is trying to access like the United States website from Europe, you just redirect them to the European website. And for that user, they don't feel rejected. They don't feel like they're being treated any differently. And it's the same also for an American user visiting that European website. Sometimes you can't control SEO. So like you don't know if Google's going to send the right user to the right place. A user might have just spent like 3 weeks in Europe racking up all the different algorithm signals and so on. And so like now, and they'll be sent to different channels, right? Different websites. So we help handle, first of all, the blocking of users that you don't really have like, and it's not just about GDPR. Some services, it's illegal to be provided to them. So like gambling websites, for example, in certain countries, in certain states, they can't be accessed. And it's a requirement on that operator to take action to prevent users from accessing those websites and services. So we can block users, we can redirect them to the users where we have jurisdiction, like we have the authorization to handle those users. But also then we also have like a new set of tools. Actually, we released it just this week called Geo Consent. And so this is how we manage forms that collect data, and we can depending on the location of the user, we can collect different types of information. So if we can't collect certain pieces of information in the United States or in Europe, we don't have to include those in the forms that we fill. And also those forms in the backend might work differently. So the information is stored in different places, right? This also helps if you're a big company with like a lot of teams in different countries. You can have one website where data is being shared like to really specific silos of teams, right? So like it's not all just being mixed and accessed by one group of people. And also, just before we talked about GDPR, you made a great point about like how when users are using the website, those algorithms on like YouTube, TikTok, and Instagram, Facebook, they're really personalized an experience for users. And if they discover a product or service through those services and then click on an ad, and then it takes them to the wrong page, right? They've just been enjoying, 5-10 minutes of highly personalized experience, and then they're taken out of that sort of like organic, smooth experience where the content has been relevant, the experience has been smooth, and then they go to like a homepage of a mega website and they need to find like that product or service that they were looking at that was in the language that they were browsing. So yeah.
Yeah, so it's just there's so many uses for it, right? Like the based on their location, country, state, you can redirect, you can have these links, you can do the blocking, and it seems like from looking at your demo a little bit, it seems like it's powerful but also intuitive, right? Because you're like, well, I want to include these areas and exclude these areas. And like how focused can it be? Like can it be down to the city, or is it just like country, state level?
Yeah, so it's at the country, city, and the regional level. Really, we can be really highly targeted, and this is also great. Like if you've ever seen those nationwide campaigns where there's a QR code on a bag of chips or a toy or a service or something like this, and you scan a QR code. Now, if you're in Europe, like this is highly relevant because they tend to ship the same products with all these different languages on the box, but then they've always got like one QR code And when you scan that QR code, it goes to one website, and usually the language is in English. But we've got France, we've got Germany, we've got Spain, and so like if you really want to it's not just like online stuff. You see, so like if you're really running like an EU-wide like physical product campaign, like that QR code is linked to one of our geo links, for example, and then when that user scans it, depending on where they are, they take them to the correct country with all the marketing and resources that have been set up for users in that market. But it also works for like government services and things like that. Usually those are at the city level. So you can have like a notice board, a poster or something like this, a nationwide government campaign. But those QR codes always link to like the local office, right?
Yeah. So this is just so cool. Like my mind goes crazy with all the possibilities, as I'm sure yours does too, right? Like there's all these situations where, say you're like a local service provider, contractor, you want the people within your radius to go somewhere, but if someone's like across the country, some other country, maybe you want to show them some other page. And what I like about what you set up here is just that it can be dropped into a lot of existing services already, right? You have the URL redirector, you have the JavaScript code. You don't have to like dig deep into your website's code base and do all kinds of custom stuff. You can get a lot done, a lot customized just by using Geo Targetly. And so I find it helps as far as my own learning. Like I like to get the facts and the features that hit my brain from one side, and then like the storytelling hit my brain from the other side, and then I feel like whatever the overlap is there, I'm like, hey, this is what's really important, here's what I don't yet know. And so as far as like for like storytelling purposes, is there like a specific like type of business that uses this more than others that you're excited about, or is there like a feature that's kind of like 80% of the use versus the 20% other features?
Yeah, I think the big use cases are the redirection tools, where people visit the website and they're sent to the correct storefront, for example. It's storefronts are not yeah it when somebody's visiting a website, if you remember just a few years ago, a lot of websites that started to grow so large used to have country selectors and language selectors, right? And so the redirection part of it is really like one of our core features, because a lot of users would drop off if it's not just about like, oh, I have to select a country. It's also like you have a lot of different types of store locators, and sometimes people don't know how to interact with them. Sometimes they click the wrong thing, and the cookies remember them, and they keep sending them to the wrong store. So with the redirect, this was really useful. It also helps like some products have different versions in different markets, or they're only available in different markets, and you don't want to show them products that are not available in their region, right? So like we have another tool, like the geo content tool that can hide things. But the other thing that's really, yeah, the other one that's really popular is also that geolinks feature that I mentioned. This is really, really popular as well. It's not just like for QR codes. It's also like if I'm on like if I'm on a forum or something like this, acting as a customer service person, I can provide a link to like our help section to somebody where they can reach support or get on a phone call. But then if somebody else views that conversation and clicks that same link, like it needs to take them to a place where they can get support, right? So the geo link is our probably second most used tool, and our geo redirect is like the number one tool. But yeah, and the geo content. This is the one where we can change headlines and change subjects, like the context of a content. But it's not just like e-commerce stores either. Like there is a lot of like international organizations, like charities and so on, that have really global like activities across the world, but like what they're doing in different countries and how they're doing it is like really localized. Not a lot of these charities and organizations like run it from the big global office. Like they give a lot of power to their the local offices, and so those guys are like need to have more control over like the content that they're serving in their own regions.
Yeah. Yeah. So, I mean, so many different uses for it and from so many different people. And it's just, it seems to be very needed, right? And because, I mean, who likes, and we've all been there where we had to choose our country, and it's like I hate that, right? I just want I'm already impatient. I'm already pressed for time. I just want to see what's right there on the page. And when, yeah, if there's like this charity and they're doing different things, different parts of the world, I just care about what they're doing where I'm located. And so, as far as like people making the best use out of these features, right? You see, there's the geo blocking, there's a geo links, there's a geo redirection. Is there like a way maybe people sometimes go wrong with it or are missing out on a helpful feature that they should be using?
Um, yeah, I think one of the things that we've just recently launched a really powerful feature called geocurrency, which we're trying to get more of our users to adopt on their website. And so, like, what this does is it automatically converts currencies, so that if you're pricing your website or taking payments in euros or dollars, for example, um, it 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 automatically converts the price on the page, but it doesn't change anything at checkout, right? So the checkout process remains the same, but the user can see the price in their local currency and the basket as it's increasing in value as they're adding things that's in their local currency. So then they have some idea of how much it costs when they're checking out. And I've been using this tool. We've installed it also on our own website, but I use like I do a lot of this manual conversion when I'm shopping online, right? I'm living in a European country, but the currency is not euros, but a lot of things I buy online are priced in euros. And just the mental gymnastics I have to do often because every few weeks that currency rate is changing slightly. So this really helps users. And so one of our customers recently had a 400% increase in conversions just by implementing this tool. It really like took away a lot of the guesswork of users, and they really saw like an immediate uptake of of conversions. And we can map it directly to the implementation of this geocurrency.
Well, great, and I think, yeah, that's very helpful to be able to just map to that local currency. And I mean, I know it might be kind of a loaded question, but how does that work as far as like mapping it to a shopping cart? If there's like, this is in dollars, this is in euros, maybe it's like fractional, decimal. Do you recommend people like create different like payment buttons and like show the appropriate one, or like how is that implemented?
No, so it's just a right click and inspect element, and you copy the element tag. I'm not a developer, but I can do it.
Okay.
So you right
Okay.
click, inspect, and then you just take that element and you put it into our mapping tool, and it just maps the pieces on the page. So it just identifies what is the price. So there's a currency symbol and a number, and it does the conversion in the background. I've forgotten what we've hooked it up to, but there's a currency conversion API that updates on a regular basis. So those prices are pretty accurate. Yeah,
And that's pretty genius. You just have to make sure to have your your CSS class or whatever whenever you mention the price to just kind of like
that's right.
change it over to what the other one is. That's pretty nice and pretty neat. And so it's like you said, you're cutting edge here. You're always adding new features. You just added new stuff last week. Is there anything that's newsworthy that you're able to talk about the future? Is there anything that's coming soon to Geo Targetly that's worth mentioning?
Well, I haven't discussed with my team what I can and can't talk about, but I'm very
All right.
excited about what we've got coming up. So we're gonna be doing more things around automated translations.
Ooh.
Maybe not automated translations, but like setting translations for sentences or product names and so on. There's some more full-featured tools that we've seen, but just it's not just enough to localize some of the words on a screen. We're looking at how do we get more contextual, and so like not just like translating sentences, but also like there's a lot of local metaphor that we would like to. If you put like it's raining cats and dogs in Google Translate, and then translate it into I don't know Serbian, and then say that sentence to a Serbian user, all the context is gone, and they'll just be like it's cats and dogs are falling from the sky. You might need a different colloquial metaphor for those users, and things like AI tools are really good at like finding the connections between like some of these wacky things we say in English and connecting them to some weird things they say in French or German and things like that. so that
Yeah.
your whatever the tone that you've set on your website is coming through also. But this is much further down the line, but that's some of the sort of things that we're looking at. Yeah.
And it's always good to like push the envelope, to use a colloquialism, and to think about what, yeah, where you could go with it. And like, it's just such a cool idea, right? Because like you said, like you can kind of do this by hand now, by like you feed your blog post, your web page in the chat GPT. You say like, hey, find the colloquialisms. You know what other countries you're serving a lot, other languages. Well, hey, does that make sense to translate this? Should it be left out? If there's something we can substitute? It's really cool to think about. And like, yeah, the mind goes crazy with all these localization ideas. And I think of like when I have like, you and I are on Zoom, and we both talk to people from other parts of the world. And sometimes you're like, well, the temperature here is Fahrenheit, but in your country it's Celsius. Well, the distance between me and San Francisco is this number of miles, but in your country it's kilometers. The temperature outside is Fahrenheit, but in yours is Celsius. And they're just little tiny tweaks, but it makes such a difference. And it's a difference between someone not knowing whatever the heck you're talking about to now you're speaking in their language. And you and I both know as internet guys that you make these little changes on your webpage, conversion rates shoot way up, right? Or people go from, I don't think I'm in the right place, to like, okay, I it's a smooth, seamless transition from that forum or that TikTok or wherever I came from. Like, I'm still, nothing has changed, right? I go from a personalized setting to some like static web page. Something's changed, but now it's still the personalized experience. And so in this last few minutes of our conversation here, want to make sure that we cover the bases, and we've shown off a lot of what Geo Targetly does, and we've talked a lot about the possibilities for localization, personalization. Is there anything that we left out of this conversation here? Is there something I should be asking you about Geo Targetly I just don't know to ask you?
Uh, sure. I would think as we look forward to the future now, it's we are entering this era of hyper localization and hyper personalization, and not just that, but like as owner operators of websites, we must all be feeling like there is more regulation, more restrictions that we are following online. Like it's no longer optional to ignore GDPR, but it, to understand GDPR is really just about being respectful and mindful about how you handle customer data, and being mindful of that can also include like just not touching it, or like collecting it in a more thoughtful thoughtful way. And I think it's also like if you start getting good at these sort of skills on your website, like about segmenting traffic and how you handle it, I think as we go into the next 4 or 5 years, as we start seeing more things around tariffs and some new types of rules around like where you can transport things and how you can transport them, it's worth it now to start thinking about how you can protect your business, um, and how you can start like restructuring it. So maybe you can continue to operate globally if you have some subsidiaries in other countries, or you have some resellers instead of you being there physically, and you start redirecting traffic to them, or like how you're thinking about shipping using different shipping companies in different countries. It's about, I think it's time for global businesses to start planning for what happens if they can't sell directly to another market, or if they can't accept payments from another country through this service for whatever reason. So it's time to think about things in a sort of less global but more local at a global scale. And you need tools to be in more than one place at once with more than one type of messaging at once. Um, so I would just mention that. Like, I think business is changing. We've experienced this big open period of sales online and marketing, but like it's still going to be that way. But we just need more tools to manage it, I think.
It's a lot to think about, a lot to navigate. I
Yeah.
love thinking about these ebbs and flows here, right? Because you think like it went from, like you said, the internet's some like big open thing, to now different countries have different rules. But then there's the tariffs, and then even like you sell on Amazon or on Audible, or you take payments. It's like every country's different, And but I mean, but that's like that can be a good thing, right? That can be a thing that differentiates you from your competitors, barrier to entry. It's hard for you to figure all this out, but it's also hard for someone else who's looking to copy you or be a competitor. So if you can stay educated, stay up to date, follow these rules, and especially use a tool such as geotargetly.com to redirect, to have your links, and to block these countries, then you can definitely shortcut a lot of time and have a more efficient, better converting site, right? If you have to have different versions of your site, different countries, redirect them to that. You want to have different kinds of forms, different kinds of pop-ups, depending on where they're coming from, then you account for that. And instead of having the hassle of throwing out your existing e-commerce platform, doing a lot of custom deep coding, geotargetly.com might allow you to just get most of the way there or all the way there with their JavaScript plugging in, replacing things on the page. That's geotargetly.com, geotargetly.com. And so, Matt, we're at the near the end of our conversation. It's the scary part, scary time, when we try to put you on the spot, try to stump you, and we ask you for a fun or helpful quote or lesson that has served you in life or in business. So what comes to mind as far as a soundbite type of quote or lesson that has helped you?
Yeah, I would say it's this one. It's a Tom Fishburne quote, the author of The Marketunist, probably the funniest website you can read about marketing on. And it's the best marketing doesn't feel like marketing. And I think a lot of marketers need to always ask themselves, how can they make this feel more organic, more natural? Um, if we don't want to be talking to too many people who don't want to receive our messages. Good communication is well targeted, it's well timed, it's well written, it's well received. Um, and one of the things when I used to work at a university and I would meet the students that I had been targeting online with ads, and I followed their conversion journey from clicking on an advert, filling in a form, to being in an interview, to being in a classroom. And then you ask them, how did you hear about us? And they think they found us. And I know that they were searching for universities in Europe 2 years ago. But when they think that they made all the decisions, took all the right actions, and took pride in their ability to find what was good for them, I think that's good marketing. So you need to like do as much as you can to be as invisible as possible.
Yes, that's a very great insight. That, and we all have those kind of buying journeys, right? Where we get to whatever the transaction is at the end, and we don't even remember what kicked that off. And if anything, we think it was our idea, but maybe we did a Google search, we watched some YouTube videos, we went on social media, we did a search, and there was a high SEO ranking. Maybe we got retargeted on multiple platforms. Maybe we got followed up over email, and next thing you know, we bought because we got like those 12 plus touch points over many months of time. But and of course we ourselves didn't hold in our heads all those times that we were reminded. But that's definitely something to think about, is what kind of marketing feels natural. And I love that list you had there. You said about it's well targeted, it's well written, it's well timed, it's well received. That's very good advice. And that's what we want to do, especially as we are using a tool such as geotargetly.com to personalize, to localize. That way, someone gets on our page, they're like, this is a seamless experience. It's where I want to be. It's where I should be on the path to finding my solution, finding the answer, making that transaction. Geotargetly.com is what you should use to make your website convert better and be more customized and be more helpful to those internet users in general. So, Mr. Matt, it's been a pleasure. It's been a blast speaking with you about geo-targeting. Thanks for coming.
Thank you for having me. It's been really nice. I was quite nervous when we started, but I would say that you're a wonderful host. Thank you.
And you're a wonderful guest because we talked about some amazing ideas. So thank you for being here.